You can wash it off that quickly, can you?
That's what I've been doing.
Yeah, they look great. Hi, are you admiring your work? Or are you just resting?
Just making sure I'm finished.
Yes, welcome back to the building site, which is a little bit dustier than usual. And that is because you join us at the end of what I think is a 10-day long project. No,
3 weeks.
3 weeks. A 3-week long project that has been a labour of love for Kylie. And today we're going to show you what happened, what we did to clean up some of the lovely chestnut beams that we've got that we're going to be exposing in this room, which will be our future kitchen. So are you happy or exhausted or
Some
both?
of them are really beautiful. They've turned out really lovely. And then some of them have got so much character. They're beautiful, but in a different way. So it's a really nice mix of the beautiful timber, the story of the house, and a lot of work.
So,
but yes, I am happy. I will be happier when there is a ceiling on and I can finish them, because I still can't see the finished version yet.
and when you say finished, do you mean with like oil and wax?
Yeah,
or do you
so-
mean finished as in done?
With oil and wax and with the ceiling to match up with this vision that I have in my head.
Well, I think that is a good place to start. Tell me about your vision, because I couldn't see it, but you definitely could.
Yeah, and I think I have lots of visions in my head and I can never explain them because the detail isn't there. It's a feeling. I don't know what this is. There was a property viewing we went to in London a long time ago when we bought one of our previous refurbs. And I went in and I used this expression, can feel the spaces, I can feel the flow, I can feel the vibe of the room. So it's not like I have a vision of this perfectly finished thing, but I have an idea of how it should feel, how it should look, how things should work together, how it flows, I don't know if there is an actual word for that. So in here, I have this vision for country style, cottagey feel. And that's where the warm tones of the chestnut come into it. It will give this really nice warmth to the room, even though the rest of it will be quite kitcheny and white walls, even though they'll be a lot more organic than a plasterboard wall. But the beams for me were really important to get that warmth coming into the room. So I can't really describe it in terms of what that is, just how it feels. And when I have one of these visions, or I want a certain result, I will just do whatever it takes to get there. And I know there was lots of comments from people last time saying it's not worth the effort. And I would totally disagree. But that's me, because I'm willing to put the work in. I want this room to be how it is in my head, to have this lovely warmth and to be this really nice, cozy, cottagey kitchen that is just in my head. It's also why we've exposed the lintels in this room and not in the other rooms. So they probably didn't explain it very well, but that's how my head works. I want this end result, and I'm willing to put in 3 weeks of work for one room to get the thing that's in my head.
And so whilst Kylie had the vision and the determination to actually do this, we didn't really know how we were going to do it to begin with. And so we did an experiment a few weeks ago, and we got lots of great comments and lots of tips and lots of suggestions about tools or special brands of sanding pads, cleaning products to get all the grime off the beams. And that was super helpful because it gave us some alternative routes to try to see if we can get these beams to look their best. And so we did lots more experimentation and testing, which we won't bore you with all of the details of, but we will talk you through the details of what we ended up doing in case you find that interesting or in case you want to do something like this yourself.
Many things did work, just to differing degrees. But this is probably the thing that was probably the most useful. Oxalic acid. Many people suggested it for cleaning it up. And it's kind of like a bleach, I would say, rather than an acid. And it's actually natural from like rhubarb plants and other plants. It comes...
Rhubarb?
Comes from, yeah. Anyway.
Wow.
I used this on all the beams at least once, on a couple of the beams 2 or 3 times, and I'm still not entirely convinced on what was or wasn't on the beams. Some people suggested it's just oxidization from the air from a long time, And there was definitely some of that because some of the beams cleaned up really easy. But there were others that definitely had something more than that on them. And
you mean like painted on?
Yeah, and someone suggested it could have been like burnt oil to preserve the timbers. I'm not too sure that's it, but there's something on some of them, and some of them still have some of that on there because I couldn't get it off, and I didn't want to just keep using this over and over and over because then you would end up with a really bleached timber because it's only in some sections. But anyway, this works really well. You just dissolve the powder into some warm water. I was using a ratio of 1 tablespoon, just with a normal spoon, to about 150, 200 mils of hot water. You can go slightly more concentrated or less concentrated, but that seemed to work for these beams. I watched loads of YouTube videos, so if you're interested, there's loads of YouTube videos out there, and they're really good. They explain kind of how it works and what to do. That was step one. And then there was lots of comments about flap discs. I found these really good on some of the beams that were really rough, really, really rough. Another suggestion that people suggested that worked really well for the beams that weren't as rough was, I just got one of these pads for the angle grinder. So just a sanding pad, and you can put normal sanding discs on there. And this was a little bit better in that it didn't leave as many burn marks and didn't dig in as much as the flap disc. The thing that I did have to combat, which again many people commented on, is an angle grinder spins much faster than a traditional sander. So I had to just use small batteries or wait till one of my big batteries was like halfway down, and then I was able to use it. But if I used it at full power, it had not too dissimilar results to the flap disc. It would spin too fast, it would burn, it would dig in a little bit. So I had to be really, really careful with this. And it's much heavier than the sander, which made my arms much tireder. So I did a first light pass on this on most of the beams. I did use a flap disc, as I said, on the really difficult bits. I know that we didn't show it in the other sanding experiment video that we did, but we already had an orbital sander. We just didn't have any sanding discs for it when we filmed that last experiment. So I did a test, this versus the other sander that we had, the corded one, the Makita. They were more or less the same. Lots of people saying, oh, an orbital will be much better. I didn't find it to be any different. The only reason I liked this is it doesn't have a cord, and it's much easier to take the discs, the sanding disc on and off. So an orbital sander definitely was good. We don't have dust extraction because we're doing this in the middle of a house. It would have been much better with dust extraction, but the angle grinder wouldn't have dust extraction. So. And then the thing that is probably my favorite suggestion was these slightly different kind of sanding discs, which are a micro mesh. I don't know what they're made of. They're like a little bit fiberglassy, plasticky, I don't know. They're very expensive, but they're very good. And the great thing is, at the end of the day, when you have one, you can just chuck it in a bucket of water with a little bit of dishwashing liquid, give it a bit of agitation, take it out, rinse it, and then you can use it again the next day. So it's much easier to reuse than traditional sandpaper pads.
There's a product called Abranet.
Yeah, there's a couple of other brands out there. People also suggested that I get the sander that goes with it, so this Mirka sander or a Festool one. I have yet to be convinced that would be that much better, but I'm going to do a little bit more research into that before I go and make the windows and the doors, because I think if I can save some sanding time in my life, that would be good. I didn't think it would be worthwhile here, mostly because we don't have the dust extraction. So I think it will work best, because this is a mesh, you can extract all the dust through the whole surface, whereas when you use a standard orbital, the dust is just being pulled through the holes there. So even this on there, you wouldn't get the full benefit of these pads. To recap, oxalic acid to begin with, to clean them, you have to wait 24 hours. Then I was coming along using the angle grinder, just with normal sanding discs, to take off the coarsest layer sometimes the flat disc, and then using the orbital sander to do the kind of cleanup or finishing. Yeah, 3 weeks. I think it's 11 working days, some of them very long days. The one good thing about all this sanding is the issue that I had in my shoulder, which was a trapped nerve, no longer exists because I just feel pain everywhere else. So it's a really good way of distracting yourself from a trapped nerve, is to do lots of other shoulder and arm activity.
And your nerve is now untrapped.
Yeah, now it's fine. I mean, sometimes it's a little bit, but yeah, it's fine. Now I just have hands that feel like they're vibrating all the time. Oh, and thank you for the tip about the dishwashing liquid in the glasses. That really helped because I was having to take my glasses off every 2 seconds. When you're standing above your head, you need these kind of ones that are fully enclosed because there was so much dust. So much dust. Oh, and just to address all the people who think that a belt sander is the right thing, these beams aren't straight and flat, and I didn't want them to be straight and flat, and it's the same why I didn't use a planer. These aren't meant to be new beams, so I don't want them to look like new beams. I want them to have the dips and the undulations and the bows and all that. If you use a belt sander, normally you would want to be on a flat surface and put an even pressure, and then it would continue to keep that flat surface. If you put it on an uneven surface, all it's going to do is run over the high spots and take them down. It's not going to actually sand the low spots. I struggled enough just with a little orbital when I was upside down and the angle grinder, so that belt sander, no chance that I would be using that for days on end upside down. Yeah, no chance. But this room is now done. That's 7 beams in this room. The dining room has 5 still to be done. There are also 3 lintels and a pole, which we're not too sure what we're going to do yet. But we're going to move on. I'm going to take a small break from sanding. We're going to put a subfloor in, but then I'll be back to sanding in that room for a couple of weeks.
So yeah, it has been a lot of work, but we are very happy with the result, and that is the most important thing as far as we're concerned anyway. So thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.